Picture every Western you've ever seen. John Wayne squinting into the sun. Clint Eastwood chewing on a cigar. That lone white hero riding off into the sunset. Hollywood told us that was the Wild West, right? It was a simple, clear-cut story. But here's the twist. The truth they conveniently left out. 1 in 4 real cowboys was black. Let that sink in for a second. 1 in 4. Tonight, we're not just pulling back the curtain. We're ripping the entire reel off the projector and exposing how Tinseltown deliberately stole an entire people's legacy. Whitewashing history for profit and myth-making. So, how did we get stuck with this ridiculously all-white frontier narrative? It's not some grand mystery, really. It's pretty simple, actually. Jim Crow era. Racism collided head-on with Hollywood's marketing machine. When the film industry really started cranking out westerns in the 1910s, studio moguls weren't just making movies. They were selling an idea. They wanted stories that celebrated manifest destiny, that glorious, rugged individualism of American expansion. And guess what? Their version of manifest destiny was exclusively sold with white faces, black actors. Well, they could play stable hands, maybe a cook, or the occasional bumbling comic relief. Never, ever, the stoic, gunslinging lead. It just wasn't part of the brand. This wasn't some accidental oversight either. It was a calculated, strategic move. Even when a plot sprang directly from a black cowboy's incredible life, the studios would cast a white star without a second thought. Take the 1956 classic, The Searchers, for instance. It's widely acknowledged that parts of that film, particularly the harrowing search for a kidnapped family, were inspired by the real-life experiences of Britton Johnson. Johnson was a literate ex-slave, a black cowboy who rode deep into Comanche territory, risking everything to rescue his family after an attack. But audiences, they saw John Wayne doing it instead. That wasn't an accident, it was policy. It reinforced a narrative, a powerful, pervasive myth that became deeply ingrained in the American psyche. The West was white. And by doing so, Hollywood effectively erased countless black lives, stories, and contributions from our collective memory. It was a deliberate act of historical theft, plain and simple. Let's talk about the actual numbers, because they paint a very different picture of the post-Civil War West. After the war, the cattle industry absolutely exploded. Demand for beef soared, and massive herds needed to be moved from the vast plains of Texas all the way up to the railheads in Kansas. This was grueling, dangerous work. Who knew how to handle livestock? Many former enslaved men. That's who. They'd spent their lives working with animals on plantations, developing skills that were suddenly in high demand. So they signed on with trail bosses, eager for paid work and the promise of a new life, however tough. Historians, digging through dusty government census slips from 1870, have meticulously tallied cowhands by name and race. Their findings are undeniable. Roughly 25% of the cowboys on those trails were black. Think about that. 1 in 4. And that's just the Anglo-American tradition. If you add in the countless Mexican vaqueros, whose incredible horsemanship and cattle handling skills actually built the very foundation of the cattle trade in the first place, well, the American West starts looking less like a monochromatic landscape and a whole lot more like a vibrant, diverse rainbow. Diverse rainbow. Rainbow, rainbow, race, surround ses, to see with the says, send with, sends with, send with, ses, reckon, said the sepik, setex, stasita, two dots, kasik, on the stung, seat, fessigatak, do a yeep, on to stick a thy tiny, the two hour the cayut out the quay you be the go me up make ace out the gag my one that's that. It certainly wasn't the monochrome, all-white vision Hollywood so relentlessly sold us. These were men of incredible skill, resilience, and courage, riding alongside their white and Hispanic counterparts. Facing the same dangers, sharing the same harsh conditions, and doing the same back-breaking work that built an industry. Their contributions were not just significant, they were foundational. Now, let's talk about a true legend, a man whose life story is so epic, it practically writes itself. Yet, for decades, Hollywood somehow managed to miss it. Meet Bass Reeves. Born enslaved in Arkansas, he escaped to Indian Territory during the Civil War, found freedom, and immersed himself in the local cultures, learning 5 different Native American languages. This wasn't just a linguistic skill. It was a survival tool and a bridge to understanding. In 1875, he became one of the first black deputy U.S. Marshals west of the Mississippi. For over 32 years, this man was a force of nature, a lawman of unparalleled dedication and bravery. He arrested more than 3,000 outlaws, from petty thieves to hardened murderers, often venturing deep into treacherous territory alone. And get this, in all those years, in all those dangerous encounters, he only shot when he absolutely had to, and he was never once wounded. Reeves was known for his impeccable dress, often riding a magnificent silver-mounted horse, and yes, sometimes he even wore disguises to get close to his targets. He was a master of deduction, a brilliant tracker, and utterly fearless. Sound familiar? It should. The Lone Ranger radio show debuted in 1933, and it seems to have borrowed quite a bit from Reeves's real life. The disguise gimmick. Check. The Native American sidekick, though, Reeves had many, not just one, and he was the one who spoke multiple languages. Okay. Even the silver bullets, symbolizing justice and purity, have parallels in Reeves's unwavering moral compass. But of course, they painted the hero white. Reeves, the real-life inspiration, never saw a dime of credit. His story, a testament to courage and justice, was simply appropriated and repackaged for a white audience, another piece of black history casually erased. Ever heard of bulldogging? That wild, adrenaline-pumping rodeo event where a cowboy wrestles a steer to the ground by its horns? Well, that wasn't a sport until Bill Pickett showed up. Born in Texas, a black cowboy through and through, Pickett was a keen observer of animal behavior. He noticed that when a ranch dog bit a steer's nose, the animal would instinctively curl its lip and become disoriented. So, he thought, why can't I do that? He tried the same move himself, jumping from his horse onto a running steer, grabbing it by the horns, and then sinking his teeth into its upper lip to bring it down. Crowds went absolutely nuts for it. It was daring, dangerous, and utterly captivating. By 1905, Pickett was the undisputed star of the legendary 101 Ranch Wild West show, performing for kings, presidents, and throngs of cheering spectators across the globe. He was a bona fide international celebrity. Hollywood eventually got around to filming him in 1921's The Bulldogger, capturing his incredible skill on screen. But here's the heartbreaking part. Distributors, catering to the deeply ingrained racism of the era, especially in Southern theaters, trimmed his scenes. They literally cut out the black star of a film about his own invention, Bill Pickett died in 1932, a true pioneer. It took another 40 years for the Rodeo's Hall of Fame to finally induct its first black member, Bill Pickett, the man who invented bulldogging. It's a stark reminder of how deeply systemic racism worked to diminish and erase black achievement even when it was undeniable. Meet Nat Love, better known as Deadwood Dick. Now, if you want to talk about a larger-than-life figure, a true Western superstar, Nat Love is your man. He could outshoot, outride, and outrope just about any man on the plains. He was a natural, a force of nature with a lasso and a quick draw. After winning a legendary roping contest in Deadwood in 1876, a victory that earned him his famous nickname Love, did something truly remarkable. He wrote an autobiography. This wasn't just a dry recounting of facts. His book reads like an adventure comic, packed with thrilling tales of buffalo hunts, surviving fierce lightning storms, and even a dramatic capture by native warriors, from which he eventually escaped. The book sold thousands of copies, making him a celebrity in his own right, sharing his incredible experiences with a wide audience. Yet, Hollywood, they never touched it, never optioned it, never adapted it. Instead, studios preferred to endlessly recycle the same tired, white drifter template, giving us iconic films like Shane and The Magnificent Seven a century later. Brilliant films, no doubt, but still no Nat. His compelling, self-told story, a vibrant testament to black agency and adventure in the West, was left on the shelf, deemed unworthy of the big screen. It's a tragic missed opportunity, not just for cinema, but for generations who could have grown up with a more truthful, more diverse understanding of who built the West. And then there's Mary Fields, a woman whose sheer toughness and independent spirit would put most fictional Western heroes to shame. Mary Fields stood 6 feet tall, smoked cigars like a seasoned cowboy, and carried a rifle and a pistol at all times. She wasn't just tough, she was essential. In the late 1800s, she became the first black woman to work as a star route mail carrier for the U.S. Post Office in Montana. Star route meant she contracted directly with the post office, getting paid per mile to deliver mail across some of the most unforgiving terrain in America. Imagine her, traversing treacherous mountain passes, battling blizzards so fierce that her mule would sometimes vanish up to its belly in snowdrifts. She never missed a day. Bandits quickly learned that trying to rob Mary Fields was a very, very bad idea. She was known to pull her rifle at the slightest provocation, protecting her mail and herself with unwavering resolve. Newspapers of the 1890s called her Black Mary, marveling at her strength and determination. She was a legend in her own time, a black woman breaking barriers and defying expectations in the rugged West, and Hollywood. Hollywood never called at all. Her story, a powerful testament to resilience, independence, and sheer grit, remained untold on the silver screen, another casualty of a narrative that preferred to ignore extraordinary black lives. So, why did this happen? Why were these incredible, undeniable figures systematically scrubbed from the historical record, particularly by Hollywood? It wasn't a single, isolated reason. It was a perfect storm, a convergence of three powerful forces that shaped the narrative of the American West for generations. First, there was segregation, coup. This wasn't just about separate drinking fountains. It was about economics. Southern theaters, a significant portion of the American movie market, simply wouldn't book films that featured black leads or even prominent black characters. Studios, ever mindful of their bottom line, made a business decision: whitewash the West to protect their profits. If showing black cowboys meant losing access to an entire regional market, then black cowboys simply wouldn't be shown. It was a cold, hard calculation that prioritized revenue over historical accuracy or cultural representation. Second, white nostalgia, By the 1920s, the frontier was officially declared closed. Americans were looking back, creating legends and myths about this foundational period. What kind of legends did they want? Ones that flattered Anglo settlers, that glorified a specific heroic vision of westward expansion. A West populated by diverse faces, by black men and women who were just as tough and capable as their white counterparts, didn't fit this romanticized, often jingoistic vision. It complicated the narrative, challenged the idea of a singular, white-driven, manifest destiny. So, the simpler, more palatable, and ultimately less truthful version prevailed. And third, labor, politics, This might seem less obvious, but it was a crucial underlying factor. Ranch owners, particularly in the post-Civil War era, were often wary of empowering black workers. If black cowboys were seen as highly skilled, indispensable, and heroic figures, it could embolden them to demand fair wages, better working conditions, or even land ownership. A whitewashed West kept the myths simple, yes, but it also kept the labor cheap and compliant. It reinforced existing racial hierarchies, ensuring that black contributions, no matter how vital, remained undervalued and invisible. These three forces intertwined, creating an almost impenetrable wall around the true history, effectively erasing an entire people's legacy from the dominant cultural narrative. Now, it wasn't a complete blackout. There were exceptions, brave attempts to tell these stories, even if they were relegated to the margins. In 1937, a remarkable singer and actor named Herb Jeffries, often called the Bronze Buckaroo, put up his own money and shot Harlem on the Prairie. This wasn't just a Western. It was a black Western musical, a groundbreaking film that dared to put black heroes on horseback. Jeffries, with his Tangleon hat and smooth baritone, sang cowboy ballads, outdrew villains, and brought a much-needed sense of pride and representation to black audiences. The film played exclusively in segregated black theaters, a testament to the racial divisions of the time, but it was a hit. It grossed enough money for 2 sequels. The Bronze, Buckaroo, and Harlem Rides the Range. These films were affectionately known as race films, a label that, while acknowledging their unique audience, also unfortunately ghettoized the genre. It meant they weren't considered mainstream Hollywood, often produced on shoestring budgets and largely ignored by white critics and audiences. By the 1950s, the prints of these pioneering films were literally buried in studio vaults, gathering dust, almost completely forgotten by the broader public. They were a testament to black creativity and resilience, but also a stark reminder of the industry's segregational practices. For decades, they remained hidden gems, waiting to be rediscovered. But history, like a persistent cowboy, always finds a way to ride again. Fast forward to today, and we're finally seeing a powerful, long overdue reclamation of this lost legacy. In 1993, Mario Van Peebles directed and starred in Posse, a gritty, stylish Western about a black outlaw unit that brought these stories back to the big screen with a bang. Then, in 2021, The Harder They Fall exploded onto Netflix. A glittering, star-studded shoot em-up featuring Idris Elba, Regina King, Jonathan Majors, and an incredible ensemble cast, all playing figures inspired by real black cowboys and outlaws. It was a visual feast, a celebration of black power and style in a genre that had long denied their existence. The influence isn't just on film, either. Beyoncé's groundbreaking Cowboy Carter album isn't just a musical statement. It's a cultural declaration, sampling Nat Love's roping rhymes and giving a powerful nod to Bass Reeves's Marshall badge. She's actively using her platform to reframe the narrative, to remind the world that the roots of country music and cowboy culture are far more diverse than we've been led to believe. And it's not just in the realm of celebrity. On the streets of South Central LA, the Compton Cowboys ride, keeping kids off the streets and connecting them to a proud equestrian heritage. The annual Bill Pickett Invitational Rodeo tours black cities across the nation, celebrating bulldogging, barrel racing, and the enduring spirit of black cowboy culture. The legacy isn't dead, it's thriving, evolving, and Hollywood's lens is finally, thankfully, refocusing. These aren't just stories being told, are histories being lived and reclaimed. Here's a kicker, a piece of linguistic sleight of hand that perfectly illustrates how deeply ingrained this erasure was. The word itself, cowboy, was often code. On antebellum plantations, a cowboy was typically the black laborer, the enslaved man tasked with the arduous work of tending to the cattle. Meanwhile, the white overseer or owner often got the fancier, more prestigious term, cattleman. After emancipation, when these former enslaved men found themselves free, but often without land or resources, they kept the name cowboy because it meant paid work, a path to independence, however challenging. They embraced it. But then, as dime novels and early westerns began to export the term nationwide, they flipped the image. The cowboy became the rugged, white loner, a symbol of individualistic heroism. The original black context, the actual historical origin of the term, was simply erased in plain sight. The word itself became a tool of historical revisionism, obscuring the truth and reinforcing a false narrative that persists even today. It's a powerful example of how language can be used to control and manipulate history, making invisible those who were once central. Every single time Hollywood reboots another white gunslinger, another lone white hero riding into the sunset, it doesn't just repeat an old story. It reinforces a damaging myth. It perpetuates the idea that black people arrived in America only through the grim path of slavery, destined for cities and blues clubs, never as active, shaping forces in the vast, untamed West. But knowing the truth, understanding that black riders once moved 10 million head of cattle across the plains, that they were integral to building the very backbone of the American economy that rewires the entire story. It fundamentally changes our understanding of American identity and who built this nation. If you want museums like Denver's incredible Black American West Museum and Heritage Center to keep teaching kids the real story, to keep this vital history alive and accessible for future generations, please drop their link a share in the comments below and consider donating. Every bit helps them continue their crucial work. You'll find all the links you need right there. So next time someone says cowboy, don't just picture the old Hollywood stereotypes. Remember Bass Reeves's star badge and unwavering justice, Bill Pickett's groundbreaking horns and fearless innovation, Nat Love's adventurous pen, and Stagecoach Mary's unyielding cigar. 1 in 4 wasn't a footnote in history. It was the vibrant, undeniable reality of the American frontier. Hollywood may have shot the first frame in stark white, but history developed in full, glorious color, and the negatives are finally coming to light. Keep watching, keep questioning, and keep riding truth through the Hollywood dust.